What is up, my bodyweight warriors, and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to go over a quick review of 5 different minimalist barefoot training shoes and kind of give you my opinion on it. I've been asking quite a few comments like, what do you think of minimalist training shoes? What shoes are you wearing in this video? And the answer is I have various different shoes that I wear or have worn over the years, and I kind of just wanted to give you basically my experience of this. So a few things I want to cover before we jump into this review is number 1, I'm not affiliated with any of these companies. All these shoes I've bought over the past 3 or 4 years and have used in various different aspects for various different reasons, and I'm just going to share my honest opinion on those. Number 2 is I'm not a runner. I know barefoot shoes are kind of associated with running. I just want to use shoes for training purposes. I mainly do hand balancing, bodyweight training, and some functional and lower body lifting, as well as a little bit of sprinting. So this is what I use those shoes for. There's still a massive benefit to using barefoot shoes for this and for everyday life as well. I mean, your foot has 1/4 of the bones in your body in it. It's very complex, just like your hands, and we need to treat it with that same respect and dexterity when we're moving, when we're training, so we have strong feet and we can move better. The last thing I wanted to mention is I'm not going to go into crazy amounts of detail per shoe. I'm not going to go over material choices and all this sort of stuff. I'm just going to kind of give my honest reflections about using the shoe, what I think was good, what I think was bad, what I think of the aesthetics, and then kind of just give them an overall rating. And in the end, I'll kind of give you a winner and a runner-up. First of all, I want to look at the mainstream entry into this kind of market, which probably a lot of people watching this video may own. And this is personally the first shoe that I bought. I bought it like 3 or 4 years ago. I bought a pair of Nike Free 4.0. So this would be like the minimal shoe from the generic brands, from the Nikes, from the Adidas, from the New Balance. There's quite a few out there, various different applications. Here I'm looking at the Nike Free Run 4.0. So this means there's about 4 mil between your foot and the floor. 10.0 would be a normal running shoe, so about 10 mil, and then 0.0 would be basically barefoot. So there's still a little bit of cushion here, so I wouldn't class as a barefoot shoe. It's certainly more minimal, probably certainly better than a normal heeled shoe, but it's still very supported. The one thing the shoe has going for it is it's super comfortable. It is by far the most comfortable shoe. I can't quite explain it. It's like wearing a sock and then having a foot on a cushion. It feels amazing to wear just from a pure comfort perspective. That being said, although it's super comfortable, it actually feels very unstable because it has so little support around the foot itself, and you're basically slapping like a sock onto a block or a sole. It feels very easy, and I have done before just rolled my ankle straight off it because of that lack of support and stabilization. Although it's the biggest sole and technically the most supportive, it feels like the least stable. I think aesthetically, it looks pretty damn good. You can wear these out and about wherever people do all the time. Various different colors, various different things. And from a durability perspective, I think it's lasted pretty well. As I said, I've had this shoe probably about 3 years now, worn it a hell of a lot, and it's lasted pretty well. I used to wear it to training. Now I just wear it for general out and about sort of stuff. So overall, I would give this shoe, I think, probably a 2 out of 5, which seems a little bit harsh, but I'm coming from the perspective I want a minimal barefoot shoe. And whilst this is the mainstream big brand attempt to do that, I don't think they've quite nailed it from that perspective, but it is super comfortable and pretty common, pretty easily available. The next shoe I want to look at is the budget option, and that is the Feiyue. Now this is kind of the mover's shoe of choice. If you're into anything like Ido Portal or Conor McGregor, like that kind of movement community, they're all wearing Feiyus, and that's kind of the reason I got into it. And I've had various, I think I have 3 or 4 pairs of Feiyus over this time. And I like it. It's a great shoe, really, really solid shoe. Number 1, it's super cheap. You can pick them up on eBay or Amazon. I'll link all of the shoes down below, but they're at 20 quid, basically. It's super cheap, super affordable, and they kind of cover a wide variety of things. You can use them for anything. They're traditionally used for martial arts, but you could run in them if you wanted to. Definitely can train in them, and can kind of wear them out and about as well. They look almost, the white ones, like Converses. So I think from that perspective, they're great. Good budget, cover a wide variety. They're definitely more minimal, more barefoot than something like the Nikes. They're closer to that barefoot, but they're still not quite there. Still quite a bit of padding, which depending on where you stand, could be a positive, could be a negative. I think it's personally a nice balance of the two. For me, there's a couple of letdowns to this shoe. Number 1 is that because it's a mass-produced, it's a cheap shoe, I don't think it fits particularly well. I don't think the design of the shoe is designed very well for feet. I personally find that it's very baggy around the back. Even if I tie it as tight as it'll go, I can still easily slip my foot in and out. Just the fit in general isn't there. So for me, I wouldn't want to do much sprinting or athletic or dynamic stuff on it because I don't feel like my foot is secure. It still feels a little bit unstable, much like the Nike. And the next thing is that they only last about 4 to 6 months. I have all the shoes that I'm showing you in today's video. I've had some of them up to 3 years and they've lasted fine. These shoes, I find they last 4 to 6 months. They kind of start ripping or start tearing or the sole wears out and I have to grab a new one. And I personally don't like that. I don't think it's particularly sustainable and I don't like that kind of throwaway culture. For me, that ruins it, but for the price point, you can't really argue. So overall, I would give this shoe a 4 out of 5. It is a solid all-rounder. It's a nice balance between a lot of things. And out of all the shoes in today's video, it's probably the one I've worn the most. Next, we're gonna go on to the higher end minimalist barefoot shoe. And that is the Vivo Barefoot Primus. This is kind of their most minimal sports shoe that they sell. The newest shoe that I've bought is about 2 to 3 months old and is currently my daily driver, my shoe of choice at the moment when it comes to training, when it comes to just nipping out to grab something. It's kind of what I wear most of the time. There's a couple of reasons for that. It is super minimal on the base, very, very thin sole. I personally wear the Vivo Barefoot insoles with them just because it makes it fit a bit nicer. But it's still, it's a couple mil, it's super minimal. There is loads of flexibility that allows some more dexterity in the foot, which I really like. And probably the nicest thing is that it's super minimal on top as well. It's got a very thin mesh, so it feels like you're wearing like an open top shoe. It feels like you're not really wearing much of a shoe, which is actually very nice. It keeps your feet cool, especially in the hot summer we've had. It's also incredibly light, so it feels like you're wearing just like a really rugged sock. And because it's lace up, it still feels pretty sturdy. It still feels like you've got a good amount of support there while still having the balance of a lot of dexterity and flexibility and movement. So I really rate this shoe very highly on that respect. Aesthetically, I think it looks pretty good. Definitely doesn't look out of place in the gym. I think you can get away with it outside as well. I personally wear it all over the place. I really like this shoe. I've only had it 2 to 3 months. I'm finding it very hard to find any flaws of it, apart from the fact it's like £110, which I think is quite expensive. So from that perspective, I'm gonna have this on a 4.5 out of 5. It is a solid shoe. Again, it's like an all-rounder. You could run in it, you can do weightlifting in it, you can do anything in it because it's super lightweight and it still feels supportive, more supportive than the Feiyus, definitely higher quality than the Feiyus. The durability aspect I'm sure will be better. It's a solid shoe, worth the investment. The next is on the same lines of this, so that high-end minimalist shoe, but just one that has slightly more support than the previous one, and that is the Vivo Barefoot Motus. This is actually the first Vivo Barefoot shoe I bought, and I bought it specifically to use to train in, whereas the other shoes I've just bought relatively generally. This is essentially like a bit of a thicker and more sturdy Primus shoe. It's still got a very thin, very flexible, very dexterous base to it, so that still works very nicely. The outside of it is still quite light. It's not as light as the Primus. It feels very much like you're wearing a shoe. It's got a decent thickness to it, and it's got some of this extra sort of rugged rubber around it as well, so it gives your foot a little bit more support. And then finally, you've got that kind of strap. Looks very much like an Olympic lifting shoe, which is actually the reason I bought it, because I wanted sort of a weightlifting shoe. That all together, it feels like a very sturdy shoe, but again, it still allows for that flexibility and barefoot feel. So from that perspective, it's great, it feels solid. It is significantly heavier than the Primus, so I only really used it for lower body training like deadlifts, like Olympic lifting and that sort of stuff, but for that it was great. I think aesthetically it doesn't look out of place in the gym, but it's not something I would choose to wear out and about that much either. It's lasted, I've had this shoe about 2 years, it's lasted pretty solidly. I've only worn it in the gym, but it's definitely stood the test of time. It's lasted pretty well. Which you kind of expect because it's got probably the highest price point out of all of these, and that's about 120 quid, so it's very expensive. I would probably give this shoe a 4 out of 5. It's great quality. It's a little bit heavy, a little bit more there, but it still has a decent amount of flexibility. The last shoe that I want to compare is the toe shoe, kind of the synonymous that you think of when it comes to barefoot shoes, and that is the Vibram's 5-finger shoe. I have to say this one feels the most like being barefoot because you have the individual dexterity and flexibility in the toes where you can move them. It feels awesome. It actually does feel very, very nice to use, especially if you're just walking kind of about and doing some general movement on the floor. it feels very nice to do. It's still somewhat supportive, although to be honest, it just feels like you're wearing a thick undersole on your actual foot. It's not any more supportive than just wearing barefoot, which is very nice in itself. However, there are a couple of downsides. Number one is, I mean, just look at them. They just don't look good. Like, even from a perspective where I don't necessarily care too much about what other people think, like if it's a good shoe, I'll wear it. I just personally don't like wearing it. Even I went for the all black, it still doesn't look good. Can't go over that. I'm sorry, it looks awful. Number two is that they're a bit of a pain in the ass to put on. They're just very fiddly. It takes a little bit more time than usual to put on a shoe. And although that maybe seem like a little bit of a particular and insignificant thing, if you're doing it day in, day out, it can get frustrating. And I personally find it annoying, especially considering the next point, which is that you need to wear shoes with it because these shoes stink. I didn't wear shoes with it for the first like 2 months and the smell's never gone away. It smells awful. And then even when you have socks on, you've then got to put toe socks on, and then you've got to put your toe feet with toe socks on into your toe shoes. It's just, I'm just not a fan of the whole process, but the feel wise is pretty good. So I guess I'd give them a 3 out of 5 overall. It feels good, practicality, aesthetic reasons, just a no from me. So that's kind of it. That's the 5 shoes I thought I would choose. Basically, we've got your general minimal shoe, you've got your budget minimal shoe, you've got your high-end minimal shoes, and then you've got the toe shoes as well. I personally bought all of these. I've worn all these at different points. The ones I keep coming back to is something I have to give the runner-up place to, and that is the Feiyus. I think for the money, you can't argue with it. It's a fantastic shoe, covers everything, you can wear it whenever, and it's just accessible, cheap, looks okay, feels pretty good, does the job pretty well for the price, and you can't argue with it. So I definitely give that the run-up spot. Although if you do want to invest the money, in my opinion, the winning shoe, the one I'm using every day at the moment, is the Vivo Barefoot Primus. I think it is an outstanding shoe. It's, for me, the nicest balance between like lightweight, barefoot, stability, quality. I think it covers a lot of boxes. I don't like the fact that with the Feiyus, I had to buy a new shoe every 4 to 6 months and then chuck it away. From my previous experience with the Vivo Barefoot, they seem to last a lot longer. So I think it is worth the extra money. It's just that price point maybe isn't accessible to everyone. I personally think it's worth it, but I don't think you could go wrong with either of those. The Vivo Barefoot Primus would be the premium option, the best option in my opinion. The Feiyus are a close second, kind of the budget version. I don't think you can go wrong with either. But that is just my opinion. This is just my experience, what I've done. I'd love to hear what your personal favorite training shoe is. What do you use to train in? What's your opinion on this? Leave a comment down below. Let me know your opinion. While you're down there, you can also hit that like button and support the channel. And if you seriously want to support the channel, then you can also hit that join button and become a member of the channel and join the monthly live stream Q&As, the extra content, the community tab where I can closely answer your questions and support me in making better YouTube videos for you. But that has been it for this week, guys. Have a strong week and peace.